Come on, check this speaker. Video office.
Power on.
Yes.
Okay, shit, some yeah, so to sign in online and then share this with me about one because you see everything is hooked up. Oh. I don't think I have time to show the course anyway, but if I'm going to show clips, I have to be on
You
this.
have the PowerPoint.
Sorry.
You have the PowerPoint slides.
I do, but
Send
if I show clips, I'm signing up for Amazon Prime here, and it's not going to work. So I can give you the slides, but that would be it. I can't show you clips. Oh, really? I would like to be able to show you on the screen. I don't know, is it possible to sign into the webinar and like share screen that way? So it's maybe. If not, then I don't think I have time to put in it.
Yeah, comment. Subject out.
Okay, so I think that works. Timing? Is it timing usually this way or this way? I said the timing, who does it? Is it this way?
The chair decides everything. He decides.
That who keeps time? Is it
Okay.
from this angle or from?
Oh, also, we'll notify you.
Thank you. Okay, do you want me to go first or shall we just go? I think I copied it. One more time. Okay. So I'll just cross out. She's the one that responded about the information. So, one time, I'm going to go first, just because I'm introducing everything, and then we'll take you, we'll go on to the. And let me just, so is it Dr.
Yes.
Dr. Charles? Okay, all right. Thank you so much to everyone for attending our panel. The name of the panel is Knowing Spirit's Vision of Human Relations with Non-Human Worlds. And Dr. Elizabeth Olaiwola and I planned this panel on a train to London after a symposium on Christianity and Islam, women and popular culture at the University of Birmingham last year. And so the idea for the panel was inspired by Dr. Elizabeth's paper at the symposium, when the spiritual is sexual. What was the rest of that? Sexual and spiritual. The sexual and spiritual. So we proposed a joint panel, both at the Lagos Studies Association and at the African Studies Association, UK, which I believe Israel will also be joining us for. And this panel is the first, it's an exploratory panel. So this is the first one. We're hoping to recruit more interest in this topic for a larger project. So if any of you are interested, kind of after hearing the abstract and the presentations, we would welcome you to write us an email or talk to us after the panel. So the abstract for the panel is, this is an excerpt, it's not the whole thing, but we're interested in how Pentecostal cultural productions, such as D.K. Olukoya's book, which you can see here, Deliverance from Spirit Husbands and Spirit Wife, and Mount Zion Film Productions, with examples of The Great Mistake and The Perilous Times, warn against the vulnerabilities to spiritual beings who lure sinful human beings into sexual relationships and establish control over their bodies and souls. These representations capture Pentecostal anxieties about spiritual power, yet by centering the relationship of humans with the powers and principalities of this world, they also reinvigorate the belief in spirit kingdoms that manifest over the physical world. So folklore about humans marrying water spirits, having children, and living in underwater spirit kingdoms have continued in stories told in church deliverance services, social media, and popular films. Likewise, in Hausa, folklore, and popular culture, there are stories of jinn who also often fall in love with and gain power over humans. And so using the word know, both in the biblical sense of sexual relations and the more metaphysical sense of knowledge of a being, we invite papers connected to questions of what does it mean to know spirits and to have experiences in a non-human realm. And so these 4 papers that we will be presenting here today explore different aspects of this question. Because I'm introducing the panel, I'm just going to go ahead and give my paper first, and that is entitled Secularizing Spirits Longing for Lost Magic in Nigerian Speculative Fiction and Art Cinema. That will be followed by Dr. Omotayo Charles's paper Oku Orun, Aya Orun, Rethinking the Space of Spirit Spouses in Yoruba Tradition and Its Manifestations in Matrimonial Spaces. And he's from Adeyemi Federal University of Education. Next will be Dr. Elizabeth Olaiwola's presentation, Nigerian Evangelical Films and Pentecostal Imagery of Gendered Spirituality. She's coming from the University of Abuja. And our final presentation is from the playwright Israel Mariamani Wekwe, The Spirit of Performance, a Director's Consideration versus an Actor's Dilemma, Matters Arising. And he's coming from the University of Benin. So thank you for joining us, and thank you to all of you for coming. So my paper, it's an exploratory sketch of my interest. It's not a fully developed paper yet, so I'm interested in the conversation afterwards. I'm going to pose more questions than anything else, and I'll look forward to thinking about it more fully with the audience. When I was 11, so I'll start with an anecdote. When I was 11, my family moved to Nigeria, and we moved to Port Harcourt from the United States. And we often would hear stories from people about spirits coming to houses, spirit husbands, spirits wives, and that sort of thing. After our first year in Nigeria, we went back to the US for a visit, and a pastor who was my dad's student, my dad was a professor at university, stayed in our house while we were gone. And when we got back, I found that he had torn down the Disney poster of Little Mermaid that I had hanging in my room. So he'd been horrified that we had given a potentially dangerous marine spirit access to our home. And as an opinionated 12-year-old, I was very upset when he warned my parents about what I thought was a harmless Disney poster of a fairy tale. So this paper comes out of my interest in the tension between those two positions, the Pentecostal demonization of spirits, at least the spirits that are not angels, right? And the secular fairy taleization of those spirits into harmless children's stories. So what are the spaces between and beyond those two positions? And what do we make of current popular culture, literary and art cinema representations of the Mamiwata and other spirits, and how do they navigate between these tensions? So it's a bit small, but you can see that this is from evangelistjoshua.com, How Do Marine Spirits Operate in The Little Mermaid. So I'll focus in this presentation on several recent films made by some of Nigeria's leading filmmakers. I'll briefly discuss Kunle Afolayan's The Figurine, which I am assuming that most of you here have seen. If you haven't, I apologize. Abba Makama's The Lost Okoroshi, which imagines a man in contemporary Lagos waking up one day having transformed into a masquerade spirit. And two films that were released last year. Abba Makama's fellow Surreal 16 collaborator, CJ Obasi's mythic Mamiwata, about a village led by a Mamiwata priestess and her two daughters, which won a cinematography award at the Sundance Film Festival and was Nigeria's nomination for the Academy Awards last year. And then Kenneth Gyang's film Mojisola, which has also been making the festival circuit, about a girl living in Jos, whose discovery that she's a water spirit complicates her love life. And thinking about these films, I was struck by the point from the British fantasy author Terry Windling, who has argued that the difference between folktales and fairy tales is that folktales are told by people who still believe in the threat of wilderness, quote, creatures, while fairy tales have entered a literary tradition where the magic of fairies is, quote, something we long for rather than fear. So folktales are often told by people who still believe in the magic, whereas fairy tales are kind of a literary tradition that comes out of the folktale. She's approaching this largely from a secular British perspective, but I wonder if her point may not be relevant to some of Nigeria's more recent speculative fiction novels and films by artists whose approach to spirits is more one of reclamation of myth and story in global speculative fiction market than of a fervent belief in spiritual power, as it is with the Mount Zion films that Elizabeth will discuss. So the role of a spirit world that exists in parallel with and in communication with the human world has played an important role in Nigerian fiction from the works of Abubakar Imam, Diofa Gunwa, Amos Tutuola, Chinua Achebe, Flora Nwapa, Wole Soyinka, Ben Okri. Many Nigerian authors have dealt with spiritual issues, and most of the earlier writers I mentioned, even these are some of the writers I teach in my African literature class, all of them are dealing with spiritual elements. But Achebe in particularly masterfully writes with two different registers. So we can read Things Fall Apart and Arrow of God as psychological and social novels, where Okonkwo and Ezulu's problems come about because of their own complicated relationships with their communities. Or we can also read that other layer added in which the gods play a major role in determining these men's fates. You can read it either way, or both ways. And we also see this sort of ambiguity in more recent works like Kunle Afolayan's groundbreaking film, The Figurine. So if you have watched it, the question at the end is, are the 7 years of good luck and the subsequent bad luck a coincidence that Femi can explain through his own manipulative plot to play on Mona's superstitions? Or is there a spiritual layer that has played a role in destiny? So on the one hand, we have those who practice spirituality and sincerely believe in spirits, either those who worship Mamiwata, such as the priestesses and practitioners interviewed by scholar Henry Druel, or those who demonize her, such as the Pentecostal pastors who warned against the power of marine spirits. And in this vein, you also have media like Mount Zion films that Elizabeth Olayiwola discusses in her research, where films envision and reenact the kinds of warnings pastors give against spirits, or the testimonies given in church about people's experiences with spirits. And then on the other hand, you have contemporary artists who engage with the idea of spirits on an intellectual level, often with a longing to return to the source, to find new meaning rather than fear, which Terry Windling describes, asking questions about the role of spirits in contemporary society, such as the films I've just described, or in novels like Nedi Okorafor's Lagoon. I believe our presenter who didn't show up was going to present on that, or Halomoto, Wole Talabe Shigidi, and the Brass Head of Obalufan, which basically creates characters out of the gods and gives them drama. Or Chikodele Emelamadu's Dazzling, or her satirical story, What to Do When Your Child Brings Home a Mamiwata. So in these novels, they're more making characters, they're kind of psychologizing spirits. rather than actually believing them. The films I discuss here are riven with questions of belief. In the figurine, The Lost Okoroshi and Mojisola, there are intellectuals. So each of these films have intellectuals in the films who are fascinated by spirits on a scientific level. In the figurine, the professor tells Mona the story of Araro Miri, the goddess who brings 7 years of good luck and then 7 years of bad luck. But asserts that it's just a folktale. He doesn't actually believe in this. In The Lost Okoroshi, the researcher interviews those who see a masquerade spirit, and then he theorizes about the imbalances corruption causes to the spiritual realm, but he never ends up meeting this living masquerade who has been going around Lagos. In Mojisola, the final one, the intellectuals move from ineffective to villainous, as there are two professors so driven by their desire to experiment to further their careers by proving the existence of mermaids that they kidnap and experiment on a girl who discovers she's a water spirit. So you can see they find the skeleton of mermaid. Here he is in an academic setting. And then eventually they experiment on this girl in the yellow sweater who discovers that she's a water spirit. And then the next film I'll discuss, C.J. Obasi's Mami Wata, unlike the urban settings of the other films, has more of a mythic setting. Has anyone seen Mami Wata? Okay. Has anyone seen any of these films? Okay, beyond the figurine. Who's seen the figurine? Okay, my assumptions were incorrect. I'm sorry. But anyway, this film, it's the rest of the films are set in urban spaces, but this one has more of a mythic setting in the village of E, which is ruled by Mama Efe. You can see her here. She's the priestess of the Mami Wata. And there are still questions of belief that drive this plot too. Mama Efe and her two adopted daughters, who you can see in the back, Priska and Zinwe, they face a crisis as fewer and fewer people come for their services or give them offerings. And this disbelief is furthered when Mama Efe cannot heal a child of what looks like epilepsy, leading to some outspoken men challenging her power, which is an early indication of the crisis that will come. And then the elder daughter Priska tells the younger daughter Zinwe, who Mama Efe had planned to be her successor, that people don't believe. And Zinwe says, you believe. So that even within the family, the youngest daughter is not really believing in the power of the Mami Wata. And then she runs away from home and kind of refuses the succession. Later, there's a militant that Mama Efe and Priska save from the water, who then engages in a love affair with the eldest daughter, and he questions Priska. She's speculating where her sister came from. There's rumors about whether she came from the Mami Wata or something. And he says, I surprise say you no believe wetin your mama believe. Priska replies, I no sabi wetin I believe past water, past tree, past sun, past land. Wetin I sabi na my mama and people them. All that other one in no concern me. If you're interested, I can play that clip later on. And so her answer indicates a spirituality that's deeply rooted in the environment, but it's absent the ideologies that lead Jasper to betray those who had saved him. So those who are disgruntled with Mama Efe's leadership say that Mama Efe and Priska are mad for following the Mami Wata they had not seen. And they join Jasper in wresting control away from the women who serve the Mami Wata. So this is a village led by women who serve the Mami Wata spirit, but then men kind of take over, and it becomes a parable of sorts for the coming of a patriarchy that's reminiscent of founding myths like Bayajida in Hausa mythology, where there's a dynasty of Hausa queens who are replaced by a line of men. Mama Efe stubbornly, part of the problem and the crisis of belief, she stubbornly refuses to speak to a doctor who visits, requesting to vaccinate the people of E. And Zinwe herself, the youngest daughter, throws away the totem into the ocean, indicating a loss of belief. Priska, the one in the middle here, she tries to join the two. So she invites the doctor to treat people in E while also continuing to help her mother. And this reminds me, if anyone has seen Tunde Kalani's film Thunderbolt, where both Western doctors and Yoruba doctors work together to try to solve the magun. So there's a similar spirit of compromise in that. And then in Obasi's film, when the Mami Wata finally shows up, it actually has Priska's face. So the Mami Wata has the same face as the eldest daughter, indicating an amalgamation of old and new knowledge. So the power of the Mami Wata has also emasculated Jasper. So this man who's taken over, his penis disappears, which we all know is a common story, kind of indicating, implying a wise female leadership that refuses sort of violent ideological power struggle that has turned E into a war zone. And I think I'm about out of time. So there was more I was going to say. But The Lost Okoroshi, it looks like no one has seen this, but this is a more satirical film, where we see it's a little bit more unsettling. Both Moji Sola and Mami Wata end on a sort of a more compromise between old and new, whereas The Lost Okoroshi is more kind of despairing of what is the place of spirituality in a contemporary world. This masquerade spirit comes, but there are all these different people all over society who try to lay claim to him for purposes of identity. We see this Igbo People's Secret Society of Heritage Restoration and Reclamation, IPSHR, which is a very funny scene, if you ever get to see it. And then also another person tries to use him for entertainment. In the end, there are these thugs who have lost any sort of respect for spirits. You can see what they say there. And it kind of, we see that it shakes the spirit world in a way that reminds me of In Things Fall Apart, when Okonkwo is looking into the fire and he realizes that when his children stop following the tradition, living fire begets cold, impotent ash. So there's a sort of foreshadowing of what will become of society in this moment. So we can talk more about this in the end. If you want to see any clips, if you have time, I can show them for you too. But otherwise, thank you. We'll go on to. So our next speaker is, if you could introduce yourself and give the name of it.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Charles Omotayo. I teach history at the Department of History at the Federal University of Education in Ondo. And the title of my paper is Okorun Ayaorun, Rethinking the Place of Spirit Spouses in Yoruba Tradition and its manifestation in matrimonial spaces. For clarification, let me just explain what this topic is all about. Okorun simply means spiritual husband. Ayaorun simply means spiritual wife. So what this paper is all about is to interrogate the Yoruba understanding of spiritual spouses and how they manifest in matrimonial spaces. So this work is an ongoing research. This research was inspired by one or two personal experiences. And when I saw the call for paper, I was like, wow, this is the right panel for me to come and at least share my little findings and at least get more input from scholars. And I will cite one of the personal experience. It was on a Tuesday. On a Tuesday, I left my house and I was walking down the streets. Then I saw a very old woman, an aged woman of about 80 plus. Now, this woman was running after another young lady. While she was running after another young lady, she was shouting at the top of her voice, calling that young lady, Bingpe, Bingpe, Bingpe. So I was surprised that what could be the reason why this old woman at her age was chasing after another young lady. So I followed her. Eventually, she got to the young lady and she dragged the young lady away from the public space. And she asked the question, are you with a metal? Because the young lady was actually pregnant. And in Yoruba tradition, when you are pregnant, you do not go out in the afternoon, a sunny afternoon, without attaching an element of metal on your body. Because the belief is that between the hours of 12 and 2 in the afternoon, there are some unseen spirits that are moving around. And any pregnant woman who moves around at this particular time may encounter one of these spirits, which means that the fate of the unborn child may eventually be altered or something like that. So from that personal experience, I began to, find out more about things like this. And I discovered that this is a particular field that has not been given adequate attention. I hope it is not because of this thing that sister is living. All right. So I now discovered that this is a particular field that has not been given adequate attention to by scholars. So when I saw this call, I felt it's good to join the conversation. So that is why we are here. And the paper is a work in progress. I am still collating data, still doing a lot of experiences. So let us start from the first section, which is conceptualization. In Yoruba cosmology, the Yoruba believe in spirits. The Yoruba believe in spirits a lot. In fact, as a matter of fact, the Yoruba believes that we here on earth, there are other spirits. And after death, there's another world. In fact, in Ifa corpus, Ifa is we call it the storehouse of Yoruba philosophy, the storehouse of Yoruba thought. Everything about the Yoruba tradition, culture is embedded in Ifa. Ifa stated it. One of the verses in Ifa, known as Ogbeosa, stated it, that a woman who is possessed by spirit husband, the items for deliverance, the item for exorcism is stated in that verse, which means that spirit spouses is part of the Yoruba belief system. It is not only the Yoruba. In almost all cultures in the world, including in Christendom and Islamic religion, there are references made to spirit spouses. But the case of the Yoruba is very peculiar because the Yoruba believe that every human being before creation, before birth, has an Eleda, and that Eleda is a spirit guardian. Before you come into the world, there is a spirit that is guiding you. Immediately you are born, that spirit takes over the role of a guardian. But in some special cases, there are people who their spirit guardian becomes their lover. In some cases also, there are spirits who transcend from the spirit world into the human world, into the physical world. So the fact or the point I'm trying to establish here is that spirit is part of Yoruba system, and the Yoruba believe in the manifestation of spirit in different forms. And that is why, another example, masquerade in Yoruba culture, which we call Egungun, they are called Araorun, and this masquerade are ancestors, our parents who have lived and they have died, and they are believed to have come back, or they are manifesting in different ways. And that is what we call that's just to buttress the point about spirits in Yoruba culture. Now, the manifestation of these spirit spouses, how do they manifest? I must say at this point that most times when we talk about spirit spouses, it is more common with women. So it is hard for you to hear Aya Orun, which means that men in most cases are not usually tormented by their spiritual spouse. In most cases, it is usually the women that are tormented by the spiritual spouse. And how does this thing manifest? It manifests in different ways. There are different patterns and different medium through which these spirit spouses manifest. One way is that women most times experience what they call spiritual intercourse. And this spiritual intercourse manifests in real life. Sometimes, especially at night, when they experience such intercourse, when they wake up in real life, they see signs. They see symptoms to show that something had happened to them. That is number one. Number two, in some rare cases, these spirit spouses actually appear to their partner, their earthly partner, their human partner. These spirit spouses actually appear to them. There are a number of Yoruba churches, especially maybe I should just mention the Celestial Church, to be precise, in Ibadan. There are some churches that are actually known for this. What they do in that church, this is what they do in that church to deliver people from spiritual spouses. There is one that I have actually been to. In fact, one of the reasons why I did not prepare a PowerPoint presentation is because I do not want to put so many things in the public at this point of my research. I actually want to ensure that I get a conclusion. So there is a particular church in Ibadan where people travel from different parts of Yoruba land. The pastors and the clergies in that church, there are experts in exorcism, experts in delivering people from spiritual spouses. And these things, to some of the victims, I met one, he actually said in the past 7 years, she has been seeing this particular spiritual husband coming into her dream, having intercourse with her, and preventing her from getting husband suitors. So this is one way that these people manifest. Also, majorly, women who are fair in complexion, in Yoruba land, most times are considered to have spiritual spouses. This is an assertion that has not been proven, but most times when you see a very fair lady, the assumption of our people is that this lady is possessed. Omalole Mary or something. When you see a very fair lady. So the Yoruba understanding is that a woman who is extraordinarily beautiful, a beauty that is attractive, that every man is chasing, definitely that lady is not an ordinary lady. She's either a princess in the spiritual. Because of that, the spirit people have given her so much beauty. But that beauty is not for the earthly men, it's not for the human men. It is for the spirit spouses, for them to actually enjoy their wife. That is another part. Now, do they have advantages? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? I am talking about benefits and privileges. Because the victims of these spiritual spouses, about 2 of them that I interviewed, made me to understand that there are some advantages, there are some benefits. And one of the benefits is that in some rare cases, these spirit spouses bring gifts from the spirit world to their partner. And sometimes they protect their partner. A particular woman told me in Ibadan that for a very long time, she was actually looking for an item in her workplace. And she could not sleep all through the night. Because she could not sleep all through the night, the spirit husband appeared to her in the middle of the night and told her, don't worry, you will see it the first morning when you get to office. And lo and behold, when she got to the office, she saw this thing. So she was trying to let me understand in confidence that there are benefits to this thing, just the way there are benefits to every relationship. But so apart from that, these spirit spouses also serve as their protection, to protect them from harm, from dangerous people who try to actually harm them. And what are the disadvantages? Mostly, people who are possessed by these spirits find it extremely difficult to bear children. In fact, 70% of women in Yoruba land who are assumed to be barren are automatically seen as individuals who are possessed. When a woman is barren in Yoruba land, after 4, 5, 6 years in the husband house, especially if the husband is having other women as wife, the conclusion is that the woman is being possessed, or the woman has a spirit husband. Number 2 is that a good number of women who are considered to have spirit spouses find it very difficult to get partners, to get husbands on earth. They are regarded as the vessels of the God that should not be touched. So these are the hindrances and the disadvantages. So in conclusion, what this study is trying to look at, like I said, it's an ongoing study, is to understand the manifestations of these spirit spouses and how it affects matrimonial homes, how it affects our understanding of man and woman, how it affects our understanding of marriage, how it affects our understanding of gender. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was fascinating. I believe our next presenter is Dr. Elizabeth Olaiwola, and you can introduce your title.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Elizabeth Olaiwola from University of Abuja. My title is Nigerian Evangelical Themes and Pentecostal Imagery of Gendered Spirituality. Okay. So my work is the bigger picture, the bigger project is I work on evangelical filmmaking tradition rooted in Nigeria. And then my research covers areas of gender, migration, cultural and religious studies. So my presentation today is a portion from a chapter of a book project that I'm currently still developing. So in my presentation today, I hope the slides will come up. In my presentation today, I follow the notions of sexuality and spirituality as conceptualized in Nigeria evangelical films. My analysis delved into Mount Zion films produced around the 1990s, particularly those attempting to construct narrative around. I apologize.
Do you want to just slide it? Then it gets.
Sorry, I apologize. It's important that you see the slide so that it's more engaging. Thank you. Okay, so my analysis delves into Mount Zion films produced around 1990, particularly those attempting to construct narrative around sexuality. Due to time constraint, I will limit my reference to synopsis, and I'll be looking at films like The Great Mistake, The Perilous Time, and then a recent one by Bola Akande, Falling Branches, which is yet to be released. The spiritual in popular culture. If you just go some slides, 3, 4. In many traditional Nigerian cultural practices, and if you go to slide 4,
Okay,
the fifth slide. In many traditional Nigerian cultural practices, and quite possibly throughout Africa and beyond, it is widely believed that the spiritual realm exerts significant influence over the living. For most contemporary Nigerians, their initial encounter with these spiritual entities occurred through the realms of the fiction. Numerous short stories explore the themes of spirituality, with Mami Water tales being particularly popular in Nigerian authored fiction. In this, can we move? That's good. Okay. The fifth one, thank you. In these narratives, Mami Water is often portrayed as a spirit being, assuming the guises of beautiful ladies who eventually marries and bring demand prosperity. However, the plot takes a turn when suspicion arises within the human community regarding her spiritual nature. At this point, she retreats with her wealth back into the ocean. So we also have traces of fiction engaging spiritualities with novels like Amanda, with novels like The Concubine, and we see how Iheoma faces the challenges of sustaining a marriage due to the repeated death of her earthly husbands caused by her spirit husband. There are also indigenous notions. Please, you can keep moving the slides.
Okay.
There are indigenous notions of water spirit. In most West African tradition, you see bodies of waters are believed to be governed by spirit lord, both male and female deities, and worshipped by inhabitants of the land, especially those close to the water bodies. The documentary Mami Water, I wanted to play that. The documentary Mami Water, that's on slide 5. Please just go back to slide 5. So I wanted to also see how the notions of Mami Water have been played with over time. In this documentary, is a documentary titled Mami Water. I can play it here. Okay, so that's just as a clip from documentary produced early years, of filmmaking in Nigeria. And so I will skip the part of Mami Water because Dr. Carmen McCain already mentioned that. And then I'll move to Pentecostal beliefs in spiritual influences. That will be on slide 8. So Pentecostal practices in Nigeria also believe in the powers of these spirit waters, and then considerable power that they possess. Just like Dr. Omotayo mentioned earlier, that we can see how organized church engage with the belief of spirit waters and the kind of consideration it gets. A prominent Pentecostal pastor, Daniel Olukoya, the founder of Mountain of Fire and Miracle, addresses the belief in the existence of certain spirits in his book, Deliverance from Spirit Husband and Spirit Wives, Uncubis and Succubis, and Power Against Marine Spirit. He asserts that evil spiritual marriages is real and many suffer under its yoke. Olukoya describes this spirit as vicious spiritual spirit, which can molest and torment individuals. Sexual spirits that attack females are called incubus, and that's so. I'm just quoting from his book. So then we also have other films like Highway to the Grave. Helen of Fabi, she's also another evangelical filmmaker, and she's made a number of films also depicting similar things. So often women are considered, this kind of spirit are considered as agent of darkness, and then they have ways in which they influence the human world. Please click to 12. So right from, I want to make the connection between how sex is read spiritually, and then would take me to Mount Zion films. In 1990s, that's slide 16. Sorry, this clumsy when I talk. Okay, so in the 1990s, Mount Zion started making some films around sexuality, and then the kind of relationship that sexuality can be implied as not just sexual, but spiritual. So I'll speak to films like The Great Mistake, and then The Perilous Time to demonstrate this. If we could just play over slide 16, I'll just read the synopsis. The film, The Great Mistake, unfolds in 3 parts, spanning over 4 hours. It tells the story of a young man, Bayo, called by God to serve as an evangelist. After completing his mandatory youth service, he is set to embark on his full-fledged evangelism ministry. In his eagerness to marry quickly, he falls victim to a marine agent, Princess Mabari, who disguises herself as a zealous Christian sister named Titi. So unaware of her true identity, Bayo hastily enters into matrimony with Titi, only to soon realize the grave error he has made. Titi's true mission is to destroy Bayo's ministry. Having been sent on a special assignment by the Queen of the Coast, she is equipped with seductive makeup and perfume, purportedly manufactured in the Marine Kingdom's occultic intelligence laboratory, to expedite the enticement of Bayo into hasty marriage. As the please get to 18 and just play it. As the marriage progresses, the Queen of the Coast dispatches another marine agent to accelerate the mission. Princess Abina disguises as a housemaid named Abike. She is employed by Bayo, and as his wife Titi, since his wife Titi refused to cook for him, Titi's animosity towards Bayo persisted as she denied him physical intimacy and thwarted his attention to minister in various church programs. Conversely, Abike displayed kindness and support for Bayo. The Queen of the Coast manipulated Bayo's dream, leading him to believe that Abike was a divine gift sent by God to aid him. Bayo soon yielded to Abike's lure, and she intoxicated him in a hotel, brought him back home, and engaged in a sexual encounter with him. Following their encounter, she reported to the Marine Queen that through their sexual liaison, she had transmitted an incurable disease into his bloodstream, predicting that he would succumb in 4 days. In the hospital, Bayo came to the painful realization that he had been deceived by both Titi and Abike. Stricken with remorse and suffering, he gave an account of his life and confessed to the sin of adultery with Abike to his pastor and Edalare. He encountered how Titi and Abike had appeared in the Marine Kingdom and with their attire, confirming that they had been sent on a mission to disrupt his life and that they had succeeded. The pastor and Edalare prayed for God to spare his life, but unfortunately it was too late. In a vision, Bayo saw that God had forgiven him and welcomed him to heaven, yet his original ministerial plan had been cut short. So the film, The Great Mistake, and also The Perilous Time are both Mount Zion's films, and then warning against casual sex, that the sexual is never just a pleasure, that the sexual is spiritual. Because of time, I'll skip to So in one of my conversation with, let's just skip to 22. In one of my conversation with a contemporary evangelical filmmaker who is based in Manchester, so she speaks, yes, just positive. So she speaks about the connection for evangelical filmmakers. She speaks about what they think about sex. So sex is hardly interpreted as pleasure. Sex is spiritual. Okay. Yeah, me too. Okay, fine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Thank uh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, so I just wanted to play that just for us to get insight onto the filmmaker's mind and then how it is interpreted in the evangelical. I'm sorry, this is not quite coming out as I'd planned it because he's trying to just excerpt a tiny portion of a big project. So I also want to look at how women's sartorial practice is linked to spirituality and sexuality. And then there was an engaging conversation that Mike Bamiloye, who has become a very prominent evangelical filmmaker, in fact, pioneering evangelical filmmaker, that he started on women's dress and then connecting it to sexuality. If you could please take it to 24. So the discussion started online, and then we're having discussion around dressing. And so a pastor posted, the dressing of a madman is a reflection of his mindset. You can't dress like a harlot with the mindset of a saint. Next slide, please. Okay, so family also posted, it was a whole chain, it was a whole week of discussing women's fashion and then connection to sex and then the spiritual. So family posted also, you can't have Jesus in your life and still be looking sexy. The Spirit of God is not a sexy spirit, but Holy Spirit. Then there are a number of such posts. I would move to the last one and then try to make a conclusion if I can. You dress seductively to church, you dance sexually to praise and worship in your short, tight skirt and high heels. You purposely dress to kill. Are you a higher assassin? So these are all kind of interesting conversations that I'm trying to pull together around sexuality, spirituality, women's sartorial practice, and I have a number of things I'm unable to say, but I would like to force a conclusion out. So yes, so I'm concluding by just looking at how sexuality now becomes, at start, sexuality is read in Pentecostal as very sinful for a woman, and then there's no repercussion for the male. So often the woman is judged for either being an adulterous woman or having spirit husband, but with the kind of interpretation that Mount Zion now gives it, there now is consequences even for the male folks. So it would mean that there are a lot of female sexual agents, and that unsuspecting men that run into these agents can also become victims, either die early or become sick, and that. So look forward to having a more reasonable conversation during the Q&A. Thank you for accommodating my paper.
All right, well, thank you so much. And our final presenter is the playwright Israel Wickbeck. And you can introduce the title of your paper.
Thank you very much. My name is Israel Minim, and I'm an acting teacher, director. I just play. But what I'm trying to do is to convert some of the things I've seen in my productions into now writing and trying to engage these assumptions or notions as it were. And I will explain further. So the title of my work is I'm on the university. The title of my work is The Spirit of the Performance, the Director's Consideration versus an Actor's Dilemma. Matters arise slightly. Um, Sorry about that. Will come. Yeah. So that very first picture, it's a performance I did last year, and again in April in Abuja. It's Jeremy, which I also wrote. You know, and this is a particular scene, and it's deliberate. With the priestess there. Second slide, please. Okay, I try to establish something that a play is a space for multiple interactions. A director reconciles these interactions in such a manner as to provide a vision for the play. That's his directorial concept. And this vision is constructed as a concept. It is deliberate and intentional, very intentional. There's a tendency for a Nigerian play to present a metaphysical reality. This is more pronounced when these play texts appropriate words and incantations, songs, dances, and the rest. In some of the pictures that you see there, you see this ambience that creates the with the cowries, the snail shells, and all of that. And yeah, this might become uncomfortable for an actor, especially as the play offers layers and counter layers of the spiritual. I will establish much later to say that a play itself, it's a spiritual encounter because you are interacting with people and you're having to recite your lines and all that. The whole process itself, it's kind of engaging. These moments may display or play levels of interactions with deities or gods, indirect or direct responses from or by actors. In the context of my presentation, I shall appropriate at least 2 play performances which practically convey such phenomena. I recognize that the Nigerian actor lives across 2 divides and understands the duality of the natural and the supernatural. I mentioned this duality, because if you come into this room, for instance, for us, there's this engagement. Oh, either you say, oh, bless everyone here. You still take that thing into that space. Oh, yes, we have come to this safe space now. Let us pray, which I find in my rehearsals and performances. I reinforce that these plays raise issues that are contiguous to the notions of spirit and spiritual with a nuanced revision of the director as agency. Next slide. I like to give a context. Next slide. I like to give a context here. That's why I've created flashback playback of something that I've directed, Ebibulu 2010, 2018 at Terra Culture. Now, while directing this musical, which is Ebibulu, written by Charles Wokolo, the producer comes up to me to express his concern, or her concern rather, of some parents that a particular scene which happens underwater, marine, did not resonate well with their religious persuasion, and they would like their children removed from it. So what did I say? You're comfortable with The Little Mermaid. You're comfortable with Hans Christian Andersen. And let me just tell you, it's just a statue on a globe facing the road towards where the Queen of Denmark actually resides, or the King of Denmark if they have a kingdom. So how come you're doing this? You can accept that. You can accept Thor, but you can't accept Shango. So I create this duality for them to understand. We tend to just ridicule in straight terms our own existence, as it were. Next slide, please. In 2001, I did a play at Nekigidi by Osaelis. Now, a line in the play says, "My Lord, if there's anyone to bear a heavy heart as a consequence of this, it should be me. You saw my life has turned around, upside down and hanging. Every woman's desire is to be a mother someday. And I mean it as not abominable if I adorn myself with coral beads and okuku with my children around me. But my own desire has been hanging, my Lord, upside down. I can't be a mother. I can't bear my own children to nurture." Sobs. Don't you see my life hanging upside down? I am childless. This actor playing it, in fact, the 3 persons who've played it, the performances I've done, would not want to say that. If they say it under their breath, oh, God forbid. Because saying that is imposing on yourself some condemnation. Okay, the next slide is even more interesting. So we're doing this play as Agidi, I think it was a Unilag, and then lost me. Okay, Pedro Alfonso's Azagidi when God's died. This actually is it's a local rendition of the Jason and the Argonauts, the story of Medusa, Jason in search of the golden fleece. Now, the actor playing Igbago in the first one suddenly lost consciousness while rehearsing. We had St. Pimbas there. In the script of one of the actors who played Azagidi, I noticed that succeeding one of his lines, the line says, "Oh, and I shall forever worship you, O Queen of the deep seas." So he kneels down. Someday, he left his script, obviously. And I was just taking care of the place as assistant director before they all came. Pick the script up. What did I see written in pencil? I reject it in Jesus' name. That for me, sort of like reinforces what I keep saying. In fact, long prayer started, and every time after that rehearsal, oh, this play has that, this play has that. But in 1993, I'll tell you, when this play was first done in Benin in December, something like this close to happen. I was backstage behind Neka Ogu when she was playing, and she just screamed because someone prompting her, and she already had her lines. So they just thought, oh, Olokun don't catch her now. Now here we did. That kind of thing. I didn't want them to know anything about what was happening. The person who is playing Olwe, she lost her father, prominent footballer, sister to a prominent footballer. And while they were coming to bury their father, their mother. The father died. While they were coming to bury her, he had an accident. He can dribble, so I can make that reference. He can really dribble, this person. And his son is a footballer now. But strangely, I did not tell them my father was going through prostate pains. Because if I had told them, I'm sure that production would not have gone on stage. I just kept that to. So while we're having our cast party, I said, I need to tell you guys something. This is what I see. And I'm saying this because of the kind of background and experience that I come from, knowing some of these engagements or some of these things that happen. And I will explain further. Next slide, please. And this is a conflict or the contradiction or the crossroad that the actor finds in. Next slide. I've done with this. You know, the actor is at the crossroad, conflicted, unable to separate reality from make-believe. The actor is at the threshold of indecision. The actor is unable to contain the reality of the stage from the real world. The actor considers believing being a pretender or pretends believing this act of pretense. And I'm going to say something here. I tell my 300 level students immediately after my acting class, and it's the theory of Emma Baba. Not Stanislavski, not Jerzy Grotowski, not any of these Western guys. We decenter that Emma Baba. Children just play and they imitate. So how does that happen? So why would someone say, oh, these guys gave us how to act when we started acting? We break sticks, put them on our back, tie up and say, oh, there's a child behind us. How do children assume this? How do they understand this? So that's why I said it is a spiritual endeavor. Ab initio. In fact, Constantine actually explains that, you know, in an actor prepares. But this is where Monks comes in here. He says the equilibrium, he's actually talking about human remains and performance, where they brought a real score into it. I think Shoyinka has done something close to like that, where they had to slaughter a goat so that they can have an equilibrium on stage. Now, the equilibrium of the inner actor and the outer object relationship is a fragile one, and as particularly powerful vehicle for the production of a truthful performance. They also threaten to reveal the precariousness of acting and the ambivalent subject status of the actor. I've taken this to where I come from. And this is how I see the director. Next slide. You know, my idea of directing is that it is a science of producing a play. It is the process of creatively engaging a performance and providing an essence to a play that responds to the sensibilities of a culture. Keyword, sensibilities of a culture. In this light, a director articulates a vision that offers a perspective that critically approximates as the concept. And how do I mean? For a director to be a director, understand the culture. I remember in my puppetry class doing my master's at Leeds, and John Britton, they went to India to do this puppet engagement. And so after they are done, and I was about to leave, they said, something is wrong here. You did not cover the woman puppet's head. It's not so in our culture. Kind of disrespectful and all of that. So what does that mean? If you enter that space, just kind of palo fred, understand the people. Let them be the ones to teach you. Understand the environment. Don't try to think that you can impose. That's what a director should do. Understand the world of the play. Understand where the actor is coming from so that you can both meet at a point, not a crossroad. Because the crossroad in Benin mythology is where the evil one stays and they provide the ambrosia. Now, for me, acting is to be, just be. Children have shown us that. It is just being. It is believing and be living. This is how I see acting. And I've always tried to maintain this in the work that I do. Hence, I said, I start writing now to create this essence in the performances and the productions that I do. Next slide. Now, this is where the director intervenes. For a director, that's me now. Understandably, the Nigerian actor substantially plays in a space far removed from the aesthetics of our environment. And what is that space? The proscenium. Hence, Rotimi has talked about, let's have the circular quadrangle, and he used the crab, for instance, at Port Harcourt to just justify that position. And when Charles was talking about spirit and all of that, Shoyinka extends this to talk about the fourth stage, that transition. And whether we like it or not, life is cyclic. Life is cyclic, and that's where our performances actually take place. And we must appreciate that. The actor contends with this reality, which suggests as irreconcilable. The body and voice, which are the media of his or her craft, are subsumed as spirit, resonating notions of natural and spiritual. The way we see body is a spiritual thing, in the sense that, now I'm not saying religious, so spiritual. When you enter a space, you feel the space, you get the aura. Hence, you have exercises before a play even starts or a rehearsal even starts. Now, what is intriguing is the perceived fear of attachment, which enables a detachment. How do I mean again? The whole idea of incarnating a role, for instance, can actually take some persons to a limit. Now, what some persons, Susan Boyan and et al. Looked at this in 1999, and they realized that we teach actors about getting into a role, but we don't teach actors about getting out of the role. That's very, very crucial. And that's what will happen. You talk about method, you talk about all of this, but nobody ever thinks about from where we come from, how we look at humanity, how we appreciate humanity, and tend to think that there's a metaphysics around us and with us, something phenomenological. The actor needs to believe these moments of trying to be are not in conflict with its reality. The conflicts are achieved by another belief. A belief that sees such actions as fetish and primitive. So we have a God. No. I keep asking the word, spirits. What are they called in the original language? How do we actually accept them? Because we say gods, deities. In some cultures, they don't deify their gods. In some cultures. So we must accept that we cannot just take one and say it fills the whole world. We must begin to think about this. At the Red 4th, I was watching a performance of Light and Sound at Old Delhi. And the Indian friend says, in our culture, you don't die, you still come back, and there's no sin. And I'm asking myself, I really want to pursue that. Maybe you need to say that in this. But the interesting thing about India is that you have many religions, and you have trees all around the place. Nobody has cut them down. And they throw ambrosia there for the gods to feed. Are they gods? Are they deities? What? The monkeys hang around at the University of Delhi. Nobody touches them. That's why I knew what a sacred cow is. How do we think about these cultures when they come to our own space? So it's something that we need to engage when we are in that space with actors, for them to know other worlds too and appreciate those worlds. Now, the religion positions his or her belief as a communion with non-humans and abominable too. Okay, I think that's like the director intervenes, providing an understanding that reveals the theater as make-believe. It is a make-believe platform. The director does this by intentionally presenting an alternative alignment, while reminding the actor of this, but as an imagination created by the actor. The director offers nuanced renditions through deliberate exercises, etc. The director recognizes the cosmology of the actor. The director understands that the craft is a spiritual endeavor. It requires the body and mind. It underlines layers of deep-seated interactions. The director appreciates these engagements, but it is, however, not the reality of the stage. The stage is only a slice of the world rendered in imaginative resonance. Just the two, but there are more in the work itself, just the two that I cited. So, last slides. Thank you very much. Last slide so that they see the thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you so much to everyone. I think we have, what time is it? 5:15?
Yes.
We have about 20 minutes for questions and answers, so, all right, great. We have about 3 people. Shall we take all 4 questions and then answer them, and then we'll come back for more? Okay, so I think you were first.
Yeah, thank you very much. My name is Dr. Jacob from Lagos State University. Yeah, when I was going through this book, when I saw this, I said, yes, this is the session I'm going to attend. Because yes, I need to hear more about all these things. I have a doctor and I have a brother in Lagos, he's a pastor. So he came to my house last week. So he was now talking about things like this. You know, when you are not into it, it looks as if it's magical, sort of. So he was saying it, he said, exactly when I saw Oko spiritual, I said, yes, I want to attend it. Because he mentioned something, he said there's a particular woman, when they were probably they organized a prayer session, and that woman confessed that she used to see the man, that the man will even come to the woman's house. After coming in, if the woman, when the man wants to leave, the man will tell the woman that just go towards that direction. That table there, you see money there. And live and direct, the money will be there.
Yes.
I had this last week.
Yes.
I said, God, physically, I said, God, does this really exist?
Yes. Yes.
And my brother was saying this last week that it does. That it got to a point, they said they want to do deliverance for them. They said if you have a spiritual husband, they just come out. Almost everybody, they came outside and they were talking. Yes, I used to see him. Anytime he comes, practically he wants to have any sex with me, he will just push my husband away. When my husband wakes up, he will just see himself on the ground. I said, wow, in this life that we are in,
Yes.
does this thing really exist?
Definitely.
So that's why I came to this session. And you mentioned just little, although I enjoyed every bit of it.
I don't want to say much.
I say somebody that is highly spiritual, so understand spiritual things. Then that's kudos to you in that aspect. I really enjoyed that session. And another thing that I want to talk about, or let me just say, a question. You mentioned the issue of man-made spirits. So I want to find out, are they real? Because at times when you go through the internet, you see a lot of people put in there, man-made spirits. So, you know, the people that you are going to see, they are people like us, they wear all these things, and the costumes, and they start swimming inside water. So you that you research in that environment, you know, your research based on that mami water, the only difference is that our own is film industry. So that's why I'm directing this question to her. Have you seen any kind of, did you experience anything like or the person that came to your house? Is there any, at least throw more light on that in little bit? Are they real? Have you seen anything? Or some probably maybe you visited the ocean or something, I don't know. So that I felt, let me just ask that question, you know. But all the same, I really enjoyed the session. Thank you very much.
All right, then let's take it in this order. I think Zainab, were you next? Oh my goodness, okay. Respond in 30 seconds and we'll move on to Zainab in the back. Respond in 30 seconds.
Thank you. I'm Ojo from Lagos State University. From the questions she's asking about marriage spirits, I'm an indigenous pregnancy. And from the family I grew up from, I know what is all true. Because it's a practical things we see every day. The issue of marriage, you feel real? Yes, it's very real. When you go to water side, especially at the turning time of the day, and if the environment is very quiet, and you go on and on, you will see this marine at the river bank. So any little sound, they run back into the water. Practically, I've seen situations, people that worship this marine walk into the water. They walk until the water covers them. And at a particular time, maybe 2 months, they might stay in that water. And the day they are coming out, they come out with their legs out of the water dry. As a young man child, the secondary school where I attended, my school mother was incensed by a male mommy water. So, which have made me not to attend school or classes at a particular day of our traditional day. Because at that particular day, they will come tormenting her because she refused to accept their offer. And we see her twisting and dancing and saying all sorts of things. And at the end of the exercise, sometimes for weeks, she will not be able to get herself again. Several occasions when she sent me back home, when the matter becomes critical, when they see me landing in her village, everybody is scared because they know something might have come up. So it's a practical thing, it's a real thing, it's not a vision. They have more to say. Let me stop.
Lina.
My name is Lena from the Manitoba. And I have thank you so much coming and doing and thank you for wonderful presentation. My interest, I don't know, it can be a comment question, it depends on because your presentation should give us more questions than answers. So, more questions than you. So, this is it. My interest in movement, because I also show you guys in gender and sexuality. And my interest so my interest in this spirit and humans is this and religion, the intersection. First, I'm sorry, some of you may not find my this. I apologize with due respect to all religions, but as researchers, we ask questions. Now, Christianity, which is the background from which especially Elizabeth talked about, is irrational. When I say irrational, I mean that you cannot put religion under scientific process, that is my idea of irrational. It's faith, you believe, but you cannot subject it to scientific interpretation in this. The spirit world is the same. The claim of seeing a man in water or a man in water having children is also irrational. You cannot put it under scientific observation. So, if there is a struggle between these two irrational forces, don't you think that, and because this is what I'm thinking, that when the church, when the pastor prays to deliver, exorcism to deliver someone who is suffering from a spirit husband, don't you think it's a clash? It's just a power play between the two forces? That is wrong. Secondly, if the husband, the benevolent spirit, because he gives the wife the spirit, he gives her money, he gives her protection, and he gives her sexual satisfaction, and these are the duties of a physical husband. So if he does that, don't you also see a power struggle now between this physical husband and the spiritual husband? That is the thirdly, and then the woman is in the middle now. The woman who is unable to have earthly children because she is possessed by our husband, a spiritual husband. I see, and this is my view, I just see it as a deliberate kind of a discourse of control in a way that men are trying to generally just sort of stigmatize women. If a woman is unable to have children, and then they don't also put it under scientific investigation to find out whether she is the one who is married or is the husband who cannot have children, and then they say, oh, because she is possessed by a spiritual husband, it's just escalating this discussing the state, rather discuss of subjugation. So she, first of all, she's possessed. Secondly, she cannot have children, and then what? She's stigmatized. That is what I think. So they're just questions.
I think we're running out of time to do the answers, but I think we had a couple more people here. I know the people are we said 4 at first, and I think we have 10 minutes. Okay, so I think the people in the back, and then we'll see if we have other questions. So let's take the questions online, and then we'll take the people.
Okay.
Yes.
Talking about getting an actor into a role, especially when it's spiritual, how is the actor able to come out and detach oneself from a role and avoiding being possessed? And the second question, thank you all to presenters. Hello, Dr. McKellen and Dr. Elizabeth. Nice to see you again. After the conference in Abuja last minute, my question is to Dr. McKellen. How can you describe Hausa relation with spirits in carnival films? In what context do you think it will be studied, considering the level of religious sensibilities in the industry?
All right, should we answer these?
So let's take all the questions.
Take all the questions. Okay, there are two more people in the back. Yeah.
Good afternoon. My name is Sunday Akingoyi from my question is about gender and sexuality in relation to the dressing relation. While I was making my clothes, you talked about, you said you cannot dress like habits, and you think you are safe, that you mentioned that, I'll just down. Now, this is my question. I think you were trying to establish the fact that there's a way dressing presents personality in a very decent way. You can dress in a way that people to walk personality in a very indecent manner. If we subject that to the Arab world, where the women are paid, okay, so they cover their bodies and in that way they have societal respect. There are cases where women are paid, okay, the bodies are covered in a very decent way as prescribed in Islam. Then we discovered that those moral codes haven't stopped sexual activities. I mean, we've had cases of rape, cases of sexual harassment, So I'm trying to strike balance. To what extent can decent dressing reduce or address the issue of sexual malady? Thank you.
Thank you. And one more here in the room.
Thank you for the privilege to ask this question. The question that scholar asked, but somehow thought like this was my own question. I'm asking this question personally out of curiosity. Don't mind me, because I'm hoping that someday we'll like it. Now, my question is this: how does the theological benchmarks of spirituality and the African ancestral beacon of spirituality generate contradictions? And how do these contradictions somehow culturally pivot into psychologically debriefed paradoxes? I will give an example so that I can drive home my question properly. One of the debates about gender is that gender is a social construct. For the ancient prototype that we have of mankind is male and female. But in our contemporary times, we have a scientifically generated gender, which is the transgender. Now, my problem is we have seen male and female representations of spirituality. Now, Wale Soyinka once said that it is nebulous to subject spirituality to the law or to academic debate. Now, the problem here is that I've seen male and female representations of spirituality. I haven't seen transgender spirituality. That's my.
Okay, we only have 5 minutes to answer everyone, so if you could wrap up.
Okay, so that's the question I want to ask. So I want to know what are these contradictions and how do these contradictions culturally pivot into psychologically debriefed paradoxes?
All right, we have 5 minutes to answer all your questions. Let's go down the line. 1.5 minutes each.
Okay, I don't know if there are questions directed to me, But
I
I'll
think
just
There's where.
yes, Dr. Zena said something about struggle between the spiritual husband and the human husband. Yes, it is real. A number of these women who are possessed by these malevolent spirits, most times, always have issues with their husband. Issues. Most of them do not have a happy home. A particular case was actually reported to me by a husband who said, in the process of having intercourse with his wife, he had a slap on his back. You understand? He had a slap on his back, but he could not complain because as a result of that experience, the wife is the one bringing goodies, good fortune into his family. So he has actually told his wife not to go for deliverance. You understand? So there is that is also part of it. You understand? And to the last question, let me just slightly say the concept of transgender is relative, is contemporary. You understand? And I can assure you that in the next 30 years, it is going to somehow find its way into the spiritual consciousness of our people. For now, it is just contemporary. Let's wait till the future. Thank you.
Right. Just an aside, I think Sulu Shofola talks about Okebada, and you know it's a female masculine, even some Igbo deities. You may have to see those masks. Anyhow, for the Ine who asked about possession and rule. Okay. So I'm Catholic and there's exorcism. Well, you only have an exorcist in every diocese. And possession means that you don't even know that you are possessed. So that's very, very critical when I say questions. So you can get an attachment. I can understand that. And there are instances where certain things have happened. I talked about incantations. You know, you just hear a recent thing happened in Ekiti, and it was all on Twitter, on the internet. And it was that the young woman was possessed at Bamidele Oluwa University. But talking to the teacher, the young woman was hungry. They walked all through the day. And as they were playing, she just got dizzy doing that Shango thing. So that's something you can look at again from that point. But we need to establish that the theater is a platform for make-believe. So when you want to delve into it, be careful at what expense you want to do, because you can go beyond the limit. It's like getting drunk. Take one bottle, please. But you say, no, I want to take 5 bottles. You get possessed. Common bitter cola can take you to another thing. So we need to be very careful about how we engage such. The theater is a make-believe, and we must leave it at that.
All right, so I have one question. I think in response to, I was at London when we moved to Portland, and we're coming from the US, where we're like, oh, those are just stories. But the more we heard them, I was like, I don't know. I mean, it sounds true. So I'm ambivalent on that. But I know everyone was expecting me to present on Kannywood, so I apologize for not doing that. I was planning to do that for ASA UK when I had time to reread some house novels and rewatch some films. But there are, there are films and novels that represent the Al-Jannu, the jinn. And there's also jinn who fall in love with human beings. And I think in one of the novels, because someone didn't properly cover themselves and so on, they then become possessed by the jinn. So this is happening in Hausa films as well with the jinn. And we were interested in exploring kind of the idea of the Mamiwata spirit on the coast and then the desert spirit in the desert. And that's something that we would like more people to join this project, and hopefully I'll be able to do that research as well. On the transgender thing, I don't know anything about this, but I do know that in Hausa society, there's the Endaudu, who are often involved with Bori, which is kind of the spirit possession. And so people are possessed by men and women spirits. And so you might think about that in relation to the transgender stuff.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dula, for the lesson.
Okay, yeah, I think our time is up. So I would just like to say that I think people approach the same spirit depending on their culture. So their cultural interpretation, so same spirit but understood from different cultural perspective. So we can both agree that either theology or African philosophy. One thing in common is they both believe in the power of this spirit. So either Pentecostalism is trying to cast it out, it's still because they believe it's very, it creates a lot of power. So that's my brief reflection. Our time is up.
And we're happy to speak with you after the session.
Okay.
Sorry.